Alright, so it's been about 10 months since I reacquired this car, and I've basically been driving it around non-stop. But in that time, and even before the car went missing, there was a lot of work I wanted to do to it. So here I've got a full chassis harness from Painless Performance, an LS6 Valley Pan with the built-in PCV, more gauges from New Vintage USA, an MSD two-step, a Holley low ram. So now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to pull it in the garage, and I can go over a lot more in detail all the work I'm going to be doing. So let me go ahead and get in this thing. So this thing does already have a Painless Performance engine harness. So as you can see there, the 0411 PCM is hiding there. Got the fuses and the relays going there. And then as far as gauges, the New Vintage USA tachometer is in and hooked up, and the speedometer is hooked up. The fuel gauge is mounted here, but it's not hooked up to anything. And then obviously oil and water are just missing. So this car has never had any sort of chassis harness. So the ignition key, that's never been hooked up. The blinkers have never been hooked up. The high beam switch is missing, but also was never hooked up. I've got running lights here, headlights here, and then ignition here. That's all what's going to change. So all of this wiring was done pretty hastily, like almost 2 years ago. It was always, oh, we'll wait for the chassis harness, then I'll redo everything and make everything actually hooked up. Go ahead and pull it in. Oh yeah, and so by the way, that the whirring sound when I start this thing, it's almost like the starter kind of hangs. That happened ever since I put in the positive cutoff switch in the back with the Ford style solenoid. So I guess it just makes the starter hang. It's always done it, and yeah, that's the reason for that weird noise. All right, so now I can go over what needs to be done in more detail. So you saw what the wiring looked like inside, not great. And you can see underneath the hood, it's not much better. So if we come over here, there's a big gaping hole here. So this thing has never had a chassis fuse block that's, going to be put in new. Going over to the engine harness. So the engine harness is all hooked up and everything. And then I've got it somewhat wrapped with stock GM wiring I had lying around. But some of it like this I never wrapped because I was gonna hide it later. We come back here, here's where a lot of the engine harness comes through, then runs over to, we've got the Ford style, remote starter solenoid here, which goes back to the battery through that guy there. And this is the main positive terminal that everything runs off of power-wise. We've got a couple of relays there. There's the headlight relay I have just kind of sitting there that was used temporary wire. And then we've got the cooling fan relay. Then this stuff is all draped because it's all long, so I can take the clip off and unclip it. And then the stuff for the headlights, so the headlights are plugged in. I have no high beams. This stuff is all ran really long and then on connector so I can take it off. All unwrapped, hanging there. Going over to the other side, got the headlight and the LED blinker. So the plan is to rip out all of the temporarily permanent body wiring, obviously keep the engine harness, run everything body-wise new from this, so it'll run from this bulkhead. This is the end that stays in the cab and then goes all the way back. This is all the new unterminated wire that will run to everything that you see under here, and then re-wrap all of the engine harness and the chassis harness with this stuff. So this stuff also comes from Painless. It's called their Classic Braid. As you can see, the before picture definitely looks pretty accurate. So I did already do this job on the El Camino. That was about 2 years ago. And I'll show you that now to show you what it looks like when it's done. So here we're underneath the hood of the El Camino. So obviously a carbureted small block with a manual transmission has a lot less wires than an LS, but this thing does have that same full chassis harness. It is the exact same 23 circuit kit. So you can see there, that's where the bulkhead comes out. Got everything wrapped, all hidden underneath here. It's got full headlights, high beams, blinkers, there and there, all ran and all hidden and wrapped. It's got the same positive distribution block that the Firebird has. That's ran there, and the stuff, is grouped together and wrapped. So obviously, I'm not going to be able to hide everything as well because it's an LS, fuel injected and stuff. But I'm going to wrap that all as good as I can. But as far as the body wiring, that is going to be completely hidden. The other major thing that I'm finally addressing is the fact that this thing's been LS swap for going on 3 years now, and the entire time it has never had a PCV valve. All of my personal LS engines, whether it be this one, the motor in my C5 Corvette, the red motor, and then the motor that's going to be going in the El Camino, I always swap on Granatelli valve covers because they delete the brackets, you can run Gen 4 style, and they just look so much better. The problem is that they do not have any sort of PCV. So here I've got a dirty truck valve cover. So every single year truck, 99 to 13, they all have the PCV right there in the driver's side back of the valve cover. So these don't work really well. There's a Dorman part number that makes it a little bit better, but it's still really not that great. And then the cars from 97 for the C5 all the way to 03, it's external. So it sits right here. It really doesn't work that well. And every single one that I've seen is always broken because it's got all this plastic garbage in the back. So yeah, the LS PCV, obviously the LS is great, but the PCVs on them are suboptimal. So my go-to fix if you're running either a car style intake manifold or a carburetor is this. So this is the 1 year only 2004 LS6 Valley Pan with the built-in PCV. For some reason, it took GM the entire Gen 3 production run to figure out that when they have the knock sensors here, there's a big cavity here and it's the perfect place to put the PCV. And then the nipple will sit right here and then loop right into the intake manifold. The only reason why these are kind of awkward on truck manifolds is because the nipple, actually here, I'll grab one. So the suction nipple on the intake manifold for the trucks is right here. It's plastic and it goes this way. Then you've got this factory plastic line that is sometimes broken, but it's easy to fix. And that goes right back to that port. So if you were to run this Valley Pan with this intake manifold, you kind of have to do like a crazy loop around the engine. It's honestly worth it because this Valley Pan is so good and actually functions. And yeah, I've already made 2 other videos with this Valley Pan. So I've got one on my C5 Corvette, because I had the really crappy stock external style, and then also the engine that's going in the El Camino, that motor already has one. The problem, however, is I'm pretty sure GM literally just discontinued this. Like I said, it is only 1 year. It's only the 04 Corvette, 04 CTSV, 04 GTO. In 05, the car started going Gen 4, and I'll explain that over there. But yeah, so I'm pretty sure you can no longer get these. They used to be $100 from AC Delco. I went to buy this one and they were all out of stock. They were over $200, so I had to track this one down for like a week. So these might be gone. Hopefully maybe Dorman or something picks them up, but this was like a secret for years and years and years. The next thing is all my intake manifolds. So I'm not gonna be swapping it out today. I'm gonna bolt this one back on, keep it tuned with the same injectors. But since I have to pull the intake manifold to get the Valley Pan off, I might as well actually bolt up and mock up all my different intake manifolds. So this is an early LS1 intake manifold. You can tell because it has the EGR port still. So I've got a stock truck manifold, another truck manifold. That's my weird Gen 3.5 one with a slight kick up. Got my fancy low ram, but the low ram faces downwards. So I can actually bolt all those on, see where I can tilt the radiator, see if I can maybe cut these out more to get the filters up higher. I can actually mock everything up, see where it's gonna go, and then make the plans to actually do that, with another motor. So quick recap, this motor, so this is an LM4, that is the 2003 and 2004 only, that is the lower compression aluminum 5.3. So in my other 5.3s, I've got an LH6, an L33, an LS1. That's the LS1 that was in it when we originally put it together. These are both, high performance 5.3s. You can see flat top pistons. They come with 243 heads. The LM4 is an engine most people don't really know exists. It's only in 03 and 04 Trailblazers. It's mechanically identical to an LM7. So 706 head, 862 head, with dish pistons, so 9.5 to 1 compression, but it is aluminum. So the significance of how I spec this motor out. So this is, like I said, a stock LS1 intake manifold. Yes, the intake manifold is worse than the truck ones, but the cars from 97 to 2000, they come with 26-pound injectors with an EV1 injector plug compared to the 24-pound injectors and Multec 2 injector plug that comes on all the trucks and is at like 80% duty cycle from the factory. What I like about this manifold is that they're kind of available because they're not an LS6 manifold, and people have been tuning these since they were new in the cars. Last thing under the hood, so I've got an MSD 2-step 8733 module. These just plug right into the coil pack banks. So right, left, that one's sitting over there. And then it's just your ground or positive activation for the switch. And then I went ahead and I got a Granatelli. They make a bunch of switches. So I'm gonna put this in the stock steering wheel. I have an idea of how I think I wanna do it. So it'll have its 2000 RPM, drag radial, low RPM 2-step. So moving back inside, so you can see a lot of the column wiring, that's all there. It's just not hooked up. It does have the bare minimum as far as to make it run and drive and be legal. I've got the brake, that's the brake switch wiring there. And then, yeah, it's all hastily done. And then coming back here, So that's where the battery is. And the way the cutoff switch was done, I did that correctly. But like, here's all the taillight wiring. Here's the wiring for the fuel pump. That's all like hastily done. So I'm gonna, do all this better and wrap it all better because it's got its fancy LED tail light. And then more unwrapped wire that's gonna get redone. And then I can hide this better. So I mounted that PCM, that thing, I liked where that goes. That also, the fuse block that's also mounted. This it just kind of has to be here, but I can maybe wrap some of this and really tuck it up and really hide it. And then I'll put the glove box back, so that'll maybe hide it a little bit more. And then, like I said, I actually do like having the ignition be here and having the starter here. I have an idea of how I'm going to wire it though, where I will have the key work for the body and all the chassis harness, but the ignition, so turning the motor on and off, will still be here, and then the starter will still be here. And right before I get started tearing it apart, I'll go ahead and shut it off. All right, so I've been at this for a little bit, and I've technically removed all of the wiring from underneath the hood that's going to leave. Everything here you see is going to technically stay. So here is what I've removed. This is all the headlight wiring. So as you can see, it's not sketchy technically. It's all scrap wiring. I made it long. It's all properly insulated, all properly ground. It's even got, a relay built in. I just made it long. I didn't know where everything's really gonna go, and I didn't feel like hiding it. So that can go away. So you can see here, there's nothing down there anymore. This is the wire. This is the main lead for that fan that's right there. So this will get up and get wrapped. That's more that's staying down there. So all of this stuff technically does have to stay. It's all a matter of how I wrap it, with that new, better wrap. I've already started to pull some of the plastic stuff off. You can see how it's gonna look worse before it looks better. But yeah, so this is all here. This all has to stay, but it's all how I wrap it with the new stuff. So secondly, in the car, so I got the dash out, I got the gauges out. So I've pulled, finally, funny enough, the parking brake. So that's always been there and it's never been used, and then the kick panel. So we've got, that's the parking brake, that's the kick panel, those are both gone. Here's the column wiring, which this will be reused, like the new thing has a plug-in, same brake switch. That's staying hooked up to the computer for the converter. And then obviously this one will go to the new brake line wires. But I also pulled this is a really long, just like connector harness that goes to the back. That was never even used, that's all gone. Those two white wires that were going back for the brake lights, those are gone. So if we go over here, we've got, so a lot of those going up that way. That's the tachometer, the speedometer, the VSS signal. The ignition wire that was powered up the gauges, that'll be all new through the ignition harness. So that's, I'm not going to reuse that. This is all that same stuff you saw hanging. The neutral safety switch, that will all be brand new because that's also through the new chassis harness. My starter wire, I'm going to redo that. The ignition, that's all going to get redone. And then like this like wire nut stuff, that's going to get redone. So yeah, definitely it looks worse before it looks better. Then I've got the dash sitting over here. So those guys are chilling there. I'm going to put the other two right there. And then these guys, so I'm going to reuse most of what I've already done. Because like I said, these were hooked up. The running lights, like the back lights, weren't hooked up, but I didn't technically need them because they have those little OLED screens. This dashboard is very awkward and also very fragile and brittle. So anyway, I've got these are the pigtails that come with it. I've already wired them up, like I said, because those gauges were working. So I'm just going to work off of what I've already built and then daisy chain everything and then have everything working off of that and then just have the leads from the harnesses. All right, now I'm about to make this thing look way crazier because I'm going to add a ton of wires to the system because I'm about to throw in the fuse block. So this kit, part number 10403, is significant because it's 23 circuit. So Painless sells these things with many more circuits than 23. 23 is their standard circuit. It's got a keyed column, so it's 1969 and newer. 1968 and down had the key in the dashboard. 69 is keyed column, because the cool thing is that some things are actually terminated. So these two terminations, these plug into your steering column, so you don't have to terminate these. Everything else, obviously, you terminate yourself because it's going to be in wherever it goes. But these, these are going to be in the same place in every vehicle. And then the other significant difference is that it's got a bulkhead firewall connection. So you can order this, if it's more of a custom application, you can order this where the pass-through for the bulkhead and everything isn't the factory hole, it's just a grommet and you can run it yourself. But obviously I want to have this thing as close to factory like wiring style as possible, just with a lot less stuff. So keyed column, which I'm not even going to use, and bulkhead connection. So here we are underneath the dash. So how this works, so you've got your factory hole, the factory holes, and then it'll just sit there like that, capture on the other side, and then you've got bolt holes in the corners. And then GM, you know, like to keep a lot of things the same. So it basically just goes in and then sandwiches the other side and captures. And this is where you start. So as you can see, that's in the factory location. It's captured with that bolt. I'm gonna get another one on the bottom. And then, so this one, like I said, is already terminated. You can run it to your column, and then you've got a pretty daunting run of wires and just length and length and length. It's not tangled, it's just the way it's laying. But some of that's going to go over this way, some of it's going to go over this way to the back, and then I'll run to the other side. Here's what we got on this side. So there's the, I guess that would be, I guess it's both male and female. So yeah, that's the male end, and we just got, I had to bend that brake line, but got this connection that's going to go right like that, and then you've got all the run that goes all the way over there, and then that terminates wherever you want it to for the underhood stuff. Let's see if I can get this thing lined up. I think I want it to go under this brake line, but over the front. So you line up like that. Just got to figure out how to get a socket on the end of that, and then screw it, and then tighten it up. I got that guy mounted in there. That's how that's going to stay. And then I've been playing around with these wires, making ideas, you know, think about what I want to do. And here's sort of like the rough. So this run right here, this is the same thing in the El Camino. This is stuff I might de-pin later. When you wrap this stuff, you can actually kind of just hide it and never really think about it again. This is wiper stuff, which I'll never use, and then like the brake warning switch, which I'll never use. These are the light stuff, so this is all going to get used. This is like left high beam, low beam, or right, left, low beams, you know, blinkers and running lights. So those are going to come up all the way to here. Half of it will get terminated here because you've got your high beam, low beam, flasher, and running light. And the other half will run and up and then terminate to the other side. So that will be that. And then as far as this run, it's a little bit different. So these are all engine stuff. So here's the main big power. So that will get ran to a fuse. Purple is the starter. So that only has to go to this post, just like it is right here. This one is the oil pressure sender. That's also why I'm really glad that I'm putting this in, because this car has never had an oil pressure gauge and a water temp gauge, because those don't go through the factory PCM. They go through the body control module. So you have to run those separately, which means you have to wire them up separately. So that means these will go to the gauges and they'll have nothing to do with the computer. This being oil pressure. And then this one, I can't read them and hold the camera. One of them is water temperature. And then these two are for the alternator, but the alternator is fully in the engine harness section. So these I can probably just de-pin and not use. We've got the powered and the regulator. So that's basically, it's not that bad. And then, like I said, it's just got to also wrap all of this stuff. But I think I'm going to take a break from wiring, and I think I'm going to, not finish one thing and start on another. I think I'm going to pull the intake manifold off just so I make it as crazy as possible all at one time. All right, intake manifold's loose. Fuel. Beloved LS1 intake. All right, so intake's off. Yeah, it's been a while since I've been underneath here. You can see, there's a lot of, maybe that's oil getting in there. I don't know. It's, junkyard motor, no PCV. All right, so knock sensors are loose, taken off. You took off all the other 10mm bolts, and then get this guy off. All right, there it goes. So everything's off. There's our good old lifter valley, nice and burnt looking. Yeah, this motor definitely smells pretty weird inside. But yeah, this thing definitely had a pretty hard life before we got it. So the significance of this, and I think, yeah, I managed to save the video for this one too. So these lifter trays were so wore out that no matter how many times we spun the cam over, it would not hold the lifters up in the bores, or, up in the plastic lifter tray. So we had to flip the motor over to get it. So, this is a TIC Performance 229, 235, 111 plus 2. Street heat stage 2 for 5.3, and we spin this thing to freaking 6,700 RPM every time I drive it. So the thought was, hey, what throws a lifter because it spins it or tray fails, we'll deal with that. But it still hasn't done it. So yeah, this thing was not cared for before we got it. It also does have the updated Valley design. So I've got my LS1 over here in my pile. So this is my early LS1 block. Funny, you can see how much cleaner this one engine is. This is the 2000 model year LS1. That's the original parts, most of that intake manifold, the water pump, crank pulley, all that stuff that I say about how it's mine since high school and blah, blah, blah. This is the motor that it came out of. So this is I think it had 180,000 when we pulled it, but it's super clean because I owned it the whole time, or I owned it for a long time. And see, it's got the older style, so it's got this weird like pattern and stuff. It's got this guy, which I forget what this is, but this is on early motors. But yeah, so this is a really early 2000 LS1. This is way before any of the LS6 stuff, whereas this is kind of an LS6 because, like I said, it came out in 03, so it was 2 years later than the LS6. So the thing comes with all new bolts, and now they're 13s and not 10s, so you can tell people it's a floating wrist pin motor, and then new gasket. So yeah, like I said, these don't exist anymore, I think. Hopefully somebody steps up and starts making them, but they're definitely a good investment. All right, so Valley Pan is on, nice and torqued. The knock sensors are plugged back in. And now one of the main reasons why I waited to do this is I'm going to be testing my manifold to see what fits with the hood. So I'm not gonna be swapping it. I'm still gonna put that guy back on. It looks better, it fits, it's tuned for those injectors. But I've got these guys and I wanna see exactly how they work with the hood because I don't think they're going to. So the first manifold I'm going to test is my low ram. So this manifold will end up on this car. Here I've got my 36-pound Buick injectors. These are the same height and the same basically bodies as those 26s and then the LS6's 28s. And they work with the rails that come with this. So we'll throw this on. It's also quite a bit heavier than the plastic, which is a little bit of a bummer, but yeah, I think this is like 20-something pounds and that's like in the teens. Put the lid on, the throttle body's inside, but that doesn't make too much of a difference. So already this thing looks really mean. It's funny too, I forgot, because I guess most people don't run EB1 injectors. They run a much shorter, like a Pico style injector. These are really tall, and they lean out the opposite way. So on this thing, I realized they lean in, and then I guess it's a port. I guess it's a pretty low port. But these are, I guess, kind of the same angle, but yeah, they're facing totally the other way, and then the air's going that way, so that's pretty interesting. But so just looking at this, yeah, it definitely, I don't think it's gonna fit with the hood, but luckily I've got the 4th Gen Camaro coupler, so it looks like with my 92 throttle body, that'll really not move in much place. I don't even have to run a new different tube. I've got more tube of that, but the main thing is also figuring out if I can lean this differently to make that so when we get the permanent actual mounting of it done, because yeah, this is not, it's temporarily permanent like a lot of things on the car. But let me go ahead and pull all this garbage off of the fenders and off the cowl. Let me see how bad the hood doesn't fit. Yeah, so let's see how bad. It's hard to tell, it's so dark under there, but it's not that bad. What's interesting though is that it hits like right here. So, oh no, it's even further back than that. Here, let me see if I can figure this out. So it's hitting right here. So obviously, you know, most muscle cars, the motors are much further back than you think they are. So it would be right here. That little Holley EF5 part would be sticking out, which I guess that's kind of cool. I don't know. I like the whole idea of this car being as fast as it is with more motors and under a stock hood, like no holes in the hood. So I kind of, obviously I'm going to be forced to cut it out, but then I almost want to like take it to a fiberglass guy because I need to get that fixed anyway, the big old chunk. And then maybe make it so that it's got like a bulge or something. That way it's completely under a stock hood. Because yeah, it's got room in these pockets. So it almost needs like another like bulb there. I don't know, it'd look kind of weird, but also I like the look of the everything fitting under a stock hood because it's a lightweight aluminum NA car. So now I want to try my big ugly truck manifold. So this is the manifold that I pulled for that LQ4 over there. This is set up the way I always set them up in the yard, so I'll explain that once I get it in. But this, obviously this thing's big and ugly, but this is like the ultimate junkyard setup as far as all of the pieces. So interestingly enough, yeah, this one also definitely won't fit with the hood. So it looks like it might even fit worse. Like I might have to like shave it and do a bunch more stuff, but yeah, it looks really ugly. It performs better. So it performs better than that one. It's basically as good as an LS6 manifold, but not with LS6 manifold money. And then you have a little bit more injector options. So the LS6, which I've ranted and raved about all the time, that has 28-pound injectors, so it's just 2 bigger than the 26s and the 2000 and down cars, and then all the trucks, the standard Multec 2, Shorty, Mini Delphi, blah, 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 the gasoline, not the 85 trucks, those all come with 24s. So I don't like the 24s, but How this manifold is set up, like I said, how I do them in the yard is, so your standard 99 to 06 truck manifold, cable throttle. This one's a little weird because it's got a cable throttle without, but anyway, yeah, so this is a later one, but still cable. You can swap them back and forth, but you just got to make sure you deal with that guy. And then the fuel rail is 2004 and later, E85, so it's stainless. And then these injectors are EV6 style. So they're a little bit taller, but they all fit because they're all stock and they're not taking anything apart. But the reason why I like them so much is that these are 36 pounds, so just like my Buick injectors. And then, so see this is the female end of an EV1 injector plug. And then that is the, I guess, also female end of the EV6 injector. You can get a little plastic insert. They're like 20 or 40 bucks. They sit in here. They're not a pigtail. They just plop onto there. And then this EV1 injector plug clips right on. So it's much cleaner. And then you can run car manifolds if you have those with EV1s, or you can run truck manifolds with EV6s. This manifold would make more power in this application. Obviously 36-pound injectors are way bigger. I've got another manifold, actually, yeah, that one, the weird like hybrid with it angled up. That came with 30. So I've got 30 EV6s and all the rail and stuff to bolt right on. And I've got the 36 on this one. And then I've also got a Trailblazer SS intake manifold, which is the Gen 4 Gen 4 truck, like that full manifold. I might get that too and just test it because it's here. Yeah, let me grab that Trailblazer manifold just because I have it, might as well. And then see how bad that fits. Here we've got the last manifold. Here is a Trailblazer SS, which is also known as the GMT 900, new body style, all the fancy names. So this manifold came in every truck starting in 07. So all of the body style, like my Silverado outside, that's this manifold, but it's called the Trailblazer SS because it first came on the 05 LS2 Trailblazer SS. So as you can see, that looks really dumb. Like technically, if it had like a stock hood and I wanted just to have a exposed filter like coming out like that, yeah, that looks real dumb. But this is the best performing manifold you can pretty much buy. These make power everywhere except for like over 7,000. That's where like the high Rams stuff, that comes in. Every single one has stainless rails with a returnless. So they're all set up like this. The only way you can tell is if they're two different sizes. So they either come with 30s or 36s. 30s are for the gasoline trucks and 36s are for the 85. Even the 30s are plenty big for like what most people do. So I think I was actually noticing just as I was playing around with this. So what's cool about these, which is I just learned. So this guy right here, so this is that same thing that's on, these things where it's the nipple that goes that way and then that goes to that PCB. It actually removes and it rotates. So I just took it off, flipped it over and put it this way, and it actually now goes this way. So you could technically then run it to your LS6 Valley Pan nipple. So you could just do a loop right there instead of having to go backwards, around and over. The problem is that this one is all plastic. It's not a nipple. It's this dumb plastic that always breaks. So maybe somebody makes this like replaceable where it's just a barb and then you can run the thing and then you could obviously catch can it easy because you can just run there. But yeah, so this is the ultimate manifold. Like I said, technically when I set them up in the yards, I usually just grab the ugly truckling ones, not the ugly truckling 2. But if somebody wants this manifold, like I have found several now, so the GMT 900 trucks are just now getting old enough to be in junkyards. I'm really hoping they are because the short blocks in them are worthless because they're iron, but they've got 243 heads, they've got this manifold, these injectors, blah, blah, blah. So they're really good to ravage for parts. And what I might start doing is pulling entire long blocks, fully complete how they make me buy them, and then sell them in pieces, and then sell the short block for like $100 or $200, like however cheap I can sell them, and then just have tons of 243s, tons of Gen 4 coil packs, tons of these manifolds, and yada, yada, yada. All right, so enough manifold talk. Now just to put the stock manifold back on. So like I said, this thing's gonna live on this motor, and then I'll put more manifolds on different long blocks. All right, so now the LS1 manifold is back on. It's funny, after doing all that swapping, you forget how low and small this manifold really is. Here, there's a perfect opportunity to explain. So these are my Buick injectors, and then that's the stock ones. So the 28s and 26s look exactly like that. As you can see, the L67, the Buick V6 36 pounders, they are direct drop-in. So if you have a stock, 97, 98 Camaro, 97 Corvette to 04 or 02 Corvette, you know, that whole run, all the stock LS1 stuff, and your 26s aren't enough, and you don't want to go and find 28s out of the LS6s. These 36s are a direct drop-in, and then I think even like Fast, they sell these 36s, and those they're literally just them. So, and the entire reason why I even did this, so there's the stock nipple for the stock PCV, which sits like right here on the. I think that's what that like guy there's for. And then there's the new intake, so you literally just go zoop. So rather than start terminating all of this new wire, I decided to lighten the load and not make it look so insane by wrapping all the wire that's already here and already done and terminated. So I've got basically the driver's side bank of stuff all wrapped. So I started right there, right when it splits off, went this way. Got to do the one wire alternator, this guy, that one's still ready to wrap. This one I need to lengthen, then cut all the tails. And then basically it's just then go to the other side. There's a little bit less wires on this side because there's no throttle and MAF stuff. So then just wrap this, and then it's going to figure out what I'm going to pin out, or what I'm going to depin rather, and then start running stuff and start wrapping. So it's actually been several days since I first started this. I've been working on this on and off, probably about 3 full days. I'm trying to think how many hours, probably 30 or so hours. I've got entire sections almost completely done. So the engine stuff, all the stuff that I didn't terminate, that's all I think 100% done. And come over here. So here we've got the bulkhead. I have it going up and around. You can hardly see it. That's kind of the point. We have it running up here. I have not depinned any of the wiring I'm not going to use. So I haven't depinned the washer stuff, the wipers. That's all still in there. So running across here. 2 wires that I'll talk about in a little bit. This is the oil pressure and the water temp gauge. So those are technically not done, but coming over here. So there we've got the main fuse for the system. I redid all of this, rewrapped it all. So as you can see, it looks marginally better. There's the forward solenoid. There's the main distribution block. It's all wrapped. And then I've got it tucked under here, along with a lot of this. This is all wrapped. So yeah, like I said, none of this got re-terminated, but a lot of it did. So the start that's going there, the main power, that's all there. And then I've got the wire going forward for the electric fan. That's up there. So that's all done. The only 2 engine wires left are these 2 right here. These are for the gauges. So we've got the oil pressure gauge. What I need to do is take out the stock sender, put in a different one, and then that'll go to there, and I'll run that, terminate it, and wrap it. And then we've got the water temperature gauge. So last night I was actually threading in the new sender, but then I managed to break the metric adapter, so oops. So I'll just put the plug back in, and then I'll still run the wire and terminate it, but it won't have a gauge until I get a new metric adapter. So other than those 2, the only other run I need to do underneath the hood is all of the front light wiring. So this is going to go up here. At some point, I'm going to make this long and then have some sort of multi-wire junction so I can have this wire stay with the clip while I take it off. But that'll get wrapped, tucked up underneath there. Half of it will get terminated underneath here. It comes with these. You pin them out and then terminate for a new headlight plug, and then underneath I'll do it for the blinker. And half of that, like I said, will stay, and then the other half will run across here. I'm gonna take this bar, I'm gonna paint it and wrap it and hide it all through there, and then I'll terminate the other half up to their headlight and the other blinker. The other thing that I did finally do after years of having this car is I finally made somewhat of a mount to actually hold the filters. So the filters have always kind of been like wound here and kind of flopping around, but I want them sticking up and then in the scoops. But now that I know where the new throttle body is going to be, you know, more coming down, but this is all going to stay here, I made this. So another piece of threaded rod, because I love my threaded rod. It's cut to length. I've got a clamp there and a clamp there. So this braces it. And then with the whole T here, it's extremely strong, not going anywhere. And then the scoops are now functional. And you can see how much higher they stick up. So that looks good. So next thing I'll show is the trunk, which is 100% done. So I've got every single wire coming through here. The only ones that aren't are the fuel pump wire, the charge wire, and the main power. Those were already there. I'll wrap those in a bit. But this new run is all completely done. I've got wire running here to the marker light. That's not hooked up, but I'll do that at some point. And I've got it all terminating to this tail light. So I've got running light, blinker, brake light, and then also reverse light. There's no bulb in there yet, but the wire is ran. And it's coming over here. We've got the other one, so we've got the other brake light doing the same thing. This is all separate, and then I also have the 2 wires coming. So we've got the fuel pump wiring and the fuel level wiring. So I've got quick disconnects in there, and then that'll run like that. So there's a lot of wrap, a lot of stuff going every which way, but I have it really long and all looping back to itself, all tucked up in here. And then so the only thing I need to do is I'm gonna rewrap that once I figure out how much excess of the wrap that I have. But the trunk is effectively like completely done. Basically, all the work I have left to do is all of the interior. So this was all already here. I did mount it a little bit better. I kind of wrapped this, but a lot of this will get hidden by the dash. This stuff here, I'll start to wrap. I've got a relay that I'm gonna rehang. Here's all the old stuff I pulled out. Main harness going to the back, that's all ran good. I've got 2 wires for the dome light, so then I'll run those up there and I'll put like an LED thing up there. So you can see there's the run that goes to the back, all very well hidden. These wires here are for the floor mounted high beam switch. Unfortunately, when the floor got redone by not me, the floor switch is missing, so I need to get one of those. And then most of all this craziness, most of this is gauges. There's a lot of like speaker wiring and some other stuff that's not even gonna use. Also this was part of the engine harness, but we've got the OBD2 port, that was chilling over there. I'm gonna mount that. So basically, what I'm gonna do now is drop this column, hook up the column, hook up the switches for the turn signals and all that stuff. And then it'll technically be a functioning thing. I can bolt the column back up and then it's placed in the dash and then start wiring that up. So I guess I'll wire that up first and then move on inside. All right, so it's been another few days and I've gotten quite a bit more done. First off, the entire front headlight, running light, that whole clip wiring, that is all completed. So as you can see here, I have it long, it loops around. I've got all the grounds running to here. So this is on a bolt, this a quick disconnect. And then at some point, I'm gonna go back, shorten this, get a 6-pin, because that's how many wires are in here. 6-pin connector, terminate, and then have it all be one piece. But as you can see, it's all hidden up underneath, all runs to there. I've got a little bit long there, I might shorten that. I also did paint that bar, so now it's no longer the big rusty, you can see all the dust, but yeah, no more rusty bar looking thing. Runs across, and then terminating there. So I need to wrap this last one here, but so yeah, all new terminations, all new ends. And the lights are completely done. Next, I went to go install the new oil pressure sender so I could actually have an oil pressure gauge, and naturally it doesn't fit. So yeah, with the car manifold, that guy hits there. I know exactly what I need. So this is the metric adapter, I'll obviously use that. There's little like 45-degree angles for the, I guess what, 1/4 inch NPT or whatever that is. So it'll angle it just like that. I did terminate the wire already, so I'm gonna just tuck those up. So this thing still won't have a functioning water temperature and oil pressure gauge, but they will all be wired and all hidden. Last thing I did underneath the hood is I mounted the MSD 8733 2-step module. So that's up here running around like this. I made a new run so that you can hide more of the wires under there. This used to be open. This is where the washer, or not washer, the wiper motor used to be. Now I made a little black panel to mount it there. So this is hard mounted. There's the adjustments for it. You can see the arm light, and then the wire for it goes inside. And then unfortunately, the way this works is it basically just piggybacks off of the coil pack banks, which makes it so you have 2 of these big old things. So they're kind of ugly, but it's just gonna be the way it stays. Other than that, it's basically, I think it's 100% done under here. So it looks a lot better than when I started. Obviously there is a lot of wires here, a lot going on, and not a lot of place to hide it. So I'm pretty happy with what it looks under here, and now I can finally be done. The absolute last thing I have to do is all the interior, and I said the exact same thing a few days ago, but I've gotten a lot of the wiring ran up in that stock thingy because I will not be using a lot of it. A lot of it's like stereo and other controls and Piper stuff, so that's all running to there. Some of it spills out, I'll just cut it back. Neutral safety switch, so that's fully done. We got that thing kind of wrapped up better. I've got I've got some wires gonna go that way. The ignition wire, that's going over there. And then the 2 things I did hook up for the column and stuff. So this is the full column wiring. So you can see that you get a new cage and then you just push them into the right order, clamp it, and then this will bolt up or it'll hide it. And then the other thing I did, so it's really hard to see, but I guess that's the point. The column wiring for this right here, that is all hooked up. So that's all pre-terminated, you just plug it in. For now, yes, the ignition and the start is on the key. I'm going to undo that. Actually, I technically already kind of did because there's my ignition. And then what I have left to do here, so I have 2 main runs. This is for all the lights. So I'm not going to run it off of a, there's no dash here, but I'm not going to run it off of a stock plunger exactly like how I have in the El Camino, where it's going to be on switches. So I'm going to put headlights and running lights on separate switches. So I'll have this run down to here, like, roughly where the thingy is going to be, where the switch panel. And then this is all gauge wiring. So yeah, gauge wiring. I have to terminate all of that. And then I did do the two-step button. So Granatelli sells a two-step button. They sell a lot of like random cool stuff. So I just drilled that through there. I'm gonna see once the dash is back in how this has to run and not get caught. But the next thing I need to do, which is technically go in for the last time, is put the dash back in. So when I put the dash in, I'll then see where stuff's gonna hide, where I can tuck up, and then I need to start rewiring or build off of the wiring that I did before for the gauges, and then I'll get more gauges in there. And then I also have these two guys. So this is the one that came with the car originally. It's not a Trans Am one because you don't have the two holes there. And then here's a Trans Am one. I've had this for like, I don't know, 3 years. So I'll probably put this back in. This gives me something to mount a lot of stuff, and then I'll put the starter button back on this. Gauges will sit behind this once I mount that in, and then home stretch. Before I put the dash in, I'll go ahead and demonstrate exactly what's hooked up. So keys on. Now let it get a little warm, and then I'll show the two-step. All right, so I've got the two-step set at 3,500, which is way higher than it'll ever be actually in the car. So all you do is you just hold the button, full throttle, and then release. Just drop the column to get the dash in, and there you can see what I was talking about. So yeah, these guys just plug right in, they're pre-terminated, and then you get your full key working. Alright, so it's been another several days since I filmed last, and I think for the sake of this video, I am completely done. So under the hood basically looks exactly the same. The only thing I've changed is I did tuck up the oil pressure and water temperature gauges, so those will go in when I get the new senders. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with the way this turned out. Like I said before, there's a lot going on, so there's only so much I can do as far as hiding. And all of the work I've been doing has been inside. So the inside is effectively 100% done. You can see these wires here. So this is for the high beam switch. I have them just looped together so that it only has low beams. When I get a new switch there, I'll wire that back up and wrap it, so that's there. So here I am in the driver's seat. You can see the dash is now 100% in. I'm gonna build some panels here to hide all this. There's lots of wires going on because everything you see here is hooked up. So the tachometer is there, fuel gauge is there, that works. I've got the buttons for controlling both of those. Water temperature and oil pressure are both hooked up. They're just not hooked up to anything. And then I decided to mount the OBD2 port here with the light, and then I've got my switches here. So how I decided to hook everything up, so the column is fully wired, and it does have power to the gauges with the column, but not the ignition. The volts are on, the fuel gauge is on and working, speedometer is on and working. He said these would be on if they actually had a signal. They do have power, they're just not grounded as far as the signal wire. And then to turn on the ignition, so I've got this here. See, I got my check engine light going on there. The blinker stock is hooked up. I need to switch the LED style of the relays in, but as of right now, they just stay on solid, but they do work, and I can just go like that in the interim. Then as far as lights, it's just like before. So these are my running lights. The gauge lights are on as well. I guess, yeah, you can kind of see that one there. It's really bright in here. And then headlights are here. I don't think you can see. Oh yeah, so there we go. Yeah, headlights are there. So, and they are relayed. So this is not obviously a switch that should really be taking headlight power. So I've got it, there's a buried relay down in there. So headlights are on a relay, running lights. And then also I flipped these over. So before they always faced up for off and down. So I decided to take them apart, flip them upside down. So now, like I said, I got them facing the right way for the switch panel. So the reason why I'm so against having everything off the key is this. So because this is after like what, 68, it does have a locking column, and I want to be able to shut the car off without locking the column. So that's why everything is on this. So obviously I have to go on and that. So I technically need both. But so what I'm gonna do is I'll take this off. I'm gonna grind. So there's a big cog and like teeth and everything. You just grind those off. I did it on the El Camino too, since that car's a stick. So I want to be able to shut it off with it rolling. So that's not done yet, but that is why. So I've still got the starter, you know, still crank here. Yeah, so that's still cranking there for now. And then, so at some point, this thing will be completely not anything except for gauges, and then still have off and on from here. And then I'll show one other thing that I did do semi-recently on this car. So for the longest time, the exhaust would just end right back there. So I did put tailpipes on it. I've had these tailpipes, technically since I've had the whole exhaust, they've just never been installed. So I trimmed them, got them stuffed up in here. They totally rub really bad. You can see here, even with the 28s. So I need to go back, I need to shorten them and do a bunch of like pie cuts and all this stuff. I want to make it run exactly with this frame rail right here, and then curve, and then I want to have it exit out of the body and come out like right there. So these are the 28s that you've seen on the car the entire time. These are 295, 55, 15, 28 by 12.5 ETSS. They technically were always for the El Camino, but unfortunately the El Camino has never actually gotten to wear its own tires. And then I've had these for just as long. These are a set of 29 15 15s. The problem is that up until recently, I assumed I needed a 1512 5-inch backspace rim. And those are no longer made, and you have to get them all special and find them. But I decided to try to test mount them on a set of 1510 4.8-inch backspace or whatever it is, the auto drag. So they actually do fit. I assumed I needed a 12, but they fit pretty well. And then these are going to be the roll around tires. Those are going to be the roll around tires for that car. And then I'm going to get a set of like 26 11.5 ET Rs. Like real like race dancing shoes for this thing, because 28s definitely slow this car down. It's much better on a 26. So here's what it looks like with those 29s mounted. So they're super mega big, super street freak. And then yes, I know they're on backwards, but yeah, so that's what a 28 12.5 looks like versus a 29 15 15. So it sticks out super like crazy far, like not even close to fitting. But like I said, this was always supposed to be the roll around, and then with 29s, it'll be like 1600 on the highway. And they do totally clear inside as well. They clear that leaf spring. That was the main critical part about needing the 5-inch backspace. But as you can see there, they super hit that tailpipe. So yeah, the tailpipe needs to be fixed. You can see here now exactly where I want to run the tailpipe. So follow that frame rail and then 90 out and then go out like right there. So I'm back in the car, I got the hood all pinned on, and I figure no better way to wrap this video up than go ahead and test out the two-step. I see I keep the starters over there. So I've got the two-step set to 2000. Let me just confirm that that actually functions. So I'm in drive, pushing hard on the brake, and then button. Okay, so that does work. The other thing that actually I do want to test, but it might be kind of sketchy, is so in the new Vintage USA gauges, you have a built-in, let's see, 1/8 mile time, 1/4 mile time, and 0 to 60 time. It might be a bit sketchy to try to set that up with a two-step while filming on the street. So I'll see what I can do, but no promises. All right, so I only have one shot at this. Let's see what I can accomplish. But yeah, that basically spun the entire time. So yeah, I really can't do test hits with one hand while filming on the street with full tires. All right, yeah, so a little too sketchy to be doing all these test hits, but I figure I'll show you this. So as you can see, so we got mile an hour, so peak mile an hour. That's one thing these gauges do, which is pretty cool. So we hit 98 on that little test hit. Then we've got 1/8 mile time, I didn't record one, a 1/4 mile time, and a 0 to 60 time. So hopefully on a controlled surface, I can actually test those things out. And then as far as the tachometer goes, you get a max RPM. So we hit almost 7,000. So yeah, these things are pretty cool. But anyway, so I figured it's a good enough place to end this off. Hopefully this wasn't too long and boring. And yeah, next time this car is out, hopefully it's on the racetrack.